Hello again, and welcome back to Expedition Maker. I'm your craftastic host, Megs.
The art of making is timeless. It takes courage, resilience, trust, and a splash, or two or three, of creativity. As Jews, we know how important it is to persevere and stay flexible. As people, we know this year has been quite the, well, let's call it what it is, a shit show. With the impact of the pandemic on the arts, we decided to create a remote competition for Jewish creatives to challenge and expand their artistry and imagination. Each week, our makers will receive a challenge prompt based on the Jewish calendar and have 6 days to design, assemble, and record their every move. In the end, only one will take home $5,000 and the title of Grand MAKHER.
Last week, the makers left us speechless. Seriously, every single one of them is unbelievable. Unfortunately, this is still a competition, and we have to say goodbye to two of our makers with the least amount of votes for this week. Let's hear what they had to share.
So I didn't make it to the next round. Just reflecting on the experience of being part of Expedition Maker, it's been really fun to just have a weekly challenge and to get into the mode of creating and making. That was really a lot of fun and a lot of joy for me. So I'm glad that I got to participate in this way and to share some of my art.
Alright, internet people, time for real talk. If you're watching this, that means I've gotten kicked off the island. Well, that's okay. I'm a little salty, but otherwise it was a wonderful, sweet ride. Had a lot of fun, learned a lot of new things, and now I have plenty of time to move on to all the other projects I've been putting off, so toodles.
Thank you both. No matter what, you're all winners in our hearts. Speaking of winners, our Challenge 1 winner, who will be immune from elimination this week, will be announced at the end of the episode. So definitely stick around, because this competition is really heating up.
Our makers met on our weekly maker call to hear from Yoshi about this week's challenge.
Our challenge this week is the golden calf is well known as a false idol in the time of Exodus. For week 2, your challenge is to make something that represents or illuminates false idols of today. Idols may or may not be smashed.
Now let's see what our top 8 makers made.
This week we are making art about false idols. So I pulled out my trusty Chumash and started reading a little bit about this in this week's Torah portion. A few things really popped out to me. The reason that they made the golden calf was because the Jews were impatient. Meanwhile, the people began to realize Moses was taking a long time to come down the mountain. So the story of Jews being impatient is not a new thing. When they made the golden calf, they were bowing down to the golden calf. They weren't necessarily remembering what the golden calf represented. As a result, I want to make this piece about convenience. Throughout this pandemic, in this house we are kind of lazy, but also really busy and have been ordering a lot of delivery and takeout and ordering a lot of stuff online. We are very excited about this idea of convenience, but I think we also need to be reminded of all the people who make this happen. As a result, I have been collecting all of our delivery bags. I have a ton of boxes, and I'm going to try to make some art with that. Okay. These bags are thin enough that the lighting shows through well. It's not too busy on the outside, but also is thick enough, unlike the white bags, that I can get a nice solid edge through it. So I think this is the kind of bag I'm going to use. Now to build a tower out of takeout containers.
Okay, I have 2 literal piles of trash constructed to look hopefully like podiums. Now it is the moment of truth, so let's turn on the flashlight. Ooh.
My project this week ended up turning out pretty close to my initial vision. I wanted to do this project that was about a monument to convenience. We can call it Kings of Convenience if we like the band. This idea that we can put the convenience on the pedestal, so I have the delivery box, I have the food delivery bag on the pedestal, but ultimately what really we should be venerating here, or at least paying attention to, are the people who make all of that happen. In this case, the food delivery person, the chefs in the kitchen, the people who are delivering our boxes, the people working in the warehouse, all of that. And so it started with this idea of playing with light and shadows, cutting out paper, cutting out bags, putting stuff in the bags, playing with the light to create the piece that I ended up finishing up with.
Last week's project was definitely simpler for me. This week's, I think because it's in relation to my work, that was a little harder to actually figure out how to approach this project. I think a false idol is something you naively look at, or you may not have all the facts. I decided in my piece to look at my aliyah, my immigration to Israel, and my beliefs and my perceptions of Israel. I decided to show that using the Jaffa orange is something that I really identified with Israel in my before life. Jaffa oranges were developed by Palestinian farmers in the mid-19th century. Later, Palestinians and Israelis sort of worked together on these orange orchards. That narrative has been erased. I made these oranges using many different pieces because I think that the act of mosaic is extremely symbolic in terms of multiple perspectives and histories and complexities, and we break the pieces, but then we put them back together and create something new and beautiful. And I threw in mirrors, one because I love the way they catch the light, but also because I think it's important for myself and for others to reflect on where we are right now and who and what made up this country. If I could smash something into smithereens, I would smash hate and then put the pieces back together to try and create more understanding of each other. For me, coming here and understanding the different pieces that make up Israel has created for myself a much deeper understanding of this life.
Hi friends, welcome back to week 2. I am like great, but in such a good way. I just received the prompt for this week, this challenge on idols. Speaking about idols, I felt like this had become such an idol for so many people. This has become an extension of self. You know, I used to love listening to some music, going out, listening to some live music. It got to the point when everyone's like this, it just took away from everything. And I wouldn't enjoy it because nobody was there to be there. Another part of my creative process is sometimes just brainstorming or creating a mind map. So I just went on this mind map journey, which was really cool. Came up with 4 images, sketched them out. Decided I was going to use glass because I was thinking of influence and light. I want to work toward transforming them, taking them and turning them for something holy. And this is where I get the idea for the stained glass, because it's how do I create something and rearrange it, tear it down, break it down, rearrange it for the purpose of holiness. So for the most part, I got all the pieces cut, but I'm just happy that so far it's turned out the way it's turned out. I was really worried about what cutting glass was going to be like. I was scared many times because I wasn't sure what I was doing, but thankfully everything came together.
For my first stained glass, I'm pretty stoked.
We all have 5 minutes a day to do something. Just put your phone away, it's not water.
And the whole point to this was to take these images
and to basically break them and to transform them into something where I want to be, because I really believe we have the power to flip things.
Even if like nothing great comes out of it, you just spent time doing something, and separating yourself from all these different influences creates an opportunity for Kodesh, for holiness to come in. All right, peace and love.
This week, our challenge was to illuminate a false idol that the pandemic has really revealed. For me, that was Amazon. It may be convenient, but there are real consequences for real human beings.
I got some modeling clay. This is something I've always wanted to do. Oh my goodness, I forgot my tea. Amazon is the golden calf of today. Especially when the pandemic hit, it became the way that most people got everything. I decided to make a claymation anti-Amazon propaganda.
I wanted to do it. It just came to me. And something that I love about this competition is that it's giving me excuses to try things that I maybe have been wanting to and haven't had the reason to. Definitely my biggest challenge was technical. Of course, at like 2 in the morning, my wife was like, just do iMovie. Once again, I need to be more open with my process because other people can help if you feel stuck.
Knock, knock. Ow.
So this week we are talking about false idols and the golden calf and the building of the Mishkan. I was thinking about how these things are really made by craftspeople. Craftspeople are obsessed with tools. I mean, look at me. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to make a false idol 2 tools. I have here a vent fan, some plastic sheeting. So exciting. I cut my thumb and got blood on the wood.
Handy dandy spray paint. Oh, that nice metallic glint.
It's easy to sort of get sucked into buying tools and wanting tools. The tool itself can't do anything. It's only the artisan who can use it to make something really amazing. I made a pillar of tools that is animated by air and by breath. So I used the pasuk Kol haneshama tehaleliyah, that your whole soul shall praise God. But the word for soul, neshama, also means breath, thinking about air and imbuing breath and life into things. I also wanted something that without that breath just collapsed. I love those kind of floppy people at used car sales lots, so I tried to make one of my own. It was a little harder than I thought, getting that balance right. It was a lot of fun, and I'm excited for next week.
Okay, we just got our challenge. Idols. Something about false idols. This is my first initial thought. It is something that has to do with maps instead of looking out at the world around us. Then the question is, how do I make, what am I making? This time around, I'm gonna go make a sketch, a pretty detailed sketch, so that I can make sure that it's what I wanna do. Alright, I have my sketch of what I'm going to be doing on the computer. It's a vertically oriented map of the world. This time around, I don't have the same problem I had last time. Last time I did the project like 3 times basically. This time the question is, will I even have time to do one version? I kind of have basically 24 hours from now to just do it. Okay, computer time is done, back to work. I'm gonna start gluing things to glass. I have never worked with glass before. I have no idea if this is gonna work. Further backstage drama. Some pieces fell off of my table. I knew this was going to happen, obviously. This is what I get for working with glass. So my project this week deals with the golden calf of the maps that guide us in our lives on all levels, both in the way that we just kind of like, whenever we're going anywhere now, we like use our phone, but mostly of course on a much larger level, that we feel that we know where we're going in our lives. We get the degree, we get the this, we get the promotion, we get the job, and then suddenly this thing happens that shatters that. This week we're talking about false idols. Here you can see it looks like an iPad showing a map. But if you look closely, you'll see that it's not a regular map. This is a map of our lives, of the Western drive for achievement and upward mobility. Of course, this is a tablet that definitely needs to be smashed. But I didn't want to leave us with just a smashed tablet. We have to go somewhere good with it. The 10 pieces of this tablet can be removed and will create a new, colorful map. It's a map with variety, diverse styles and points of view, 10 new ways to walk through the world. This is the game of your life. In this game, you decide the rules, you decide what goes where, you decide the path. Another thing between last week and this week is that I kind of just had to push myself a little bit harder. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but last week I saw what Eugene and Hillel had submitted and I was like, I better up my game. So last week we kind of had not the best submission and I was like, this week I have to kill it. So that was my goal, to kill it, and I hope I did.
Open. Bingo. Yahtzee.
So when I was told the prompt over the video, the first thing that struck me as someone who is like just starting out in the field of psychology, Moses, who is like the figure, broke the first tablets, which was something that I just completely forgot had happened. And it was really interesting because I don't think it's talked about enough that like that was not the appropriate response. And so when we're thinking about how we socially define what emotions are appropriate for men and for little boys to feel, the false idol of masculinity is something that has been very, very prevalent. And so, idea so far, I'm hoping to make a sweater. I think it might end up being a vest. We'll see how much yarn I have. But my whole piece is going to be a piece about let little boys cry. And to tie it into the golden calf, I am going to be knitting my whole sweater in gold. Okay, so I'm on the phone with my mom. I didn't want to have so much work, so I was gonna make mittens because it's really easy to do color work for the mittens. But I just think that, like, I don't know. I think that I'm gonna end up making a sweater. I did the cardigan, you know, the one with Sowen's face on it for Grandma. I did that in a week.
So as long as you feel like it all connects to the prompt.
I'm gonna be highlighting a lot more than last week when I was taking notes while reading, and that's because I have a group project coming up. Okay, now I'm getting nervous. Just want to make sure that it's going to be wide enough to fit over my head. Okay, yeah, it is. It is. I'm being silly. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to be looking at the number of stitches I have here, and I'm going to create my diagram. So for this on the front, I want it to be on right here, like normally where you would see words. And I want to just say, let boys cry. Last night I added the collar, seamed up the front and the back, and so I'm going to try it on. So I just decreased here for the sleeve, and I'm thinking I'm going to do 10 more rows and then I'm going to decrease again. Okay, here is the final look at my piece with the cracks on its sleeves. I'm like very happy with how these turned out since I was freeballing it. Something that we are currently moving away from that has been an issue in society is that when little girls cry, they are comforted, and when little boys cry, they are told that big boys don't cry. And so that's something that's really important to me. So I have the Let Boys Cry on the front, I decided to do my crying face on the back, and that's in the style of my pop art cardigan, which maybe I'll grab that really fast. This is the cardigan that like launched me into knitting, so I decided to do the base color light and the contrast color dark for the image, and I do really like how it turned out on the back. I improv'd the cracks on the sleeves because I did want it to come back to the idea of false idols. So there's my piece. It's an improvised sweater, and I hope that it's something that young parents or parents of young children are becoming more and more aware of.
I choose to use a quote from Ecclesiastes, V'zarach hashemesh uvah hashemesh, meaning the sun rises and the sun sets. And Ecclesiastes is this book from our Tanakh. One of the big things that's happening in this book is a sitting and a dwelling in one's own unhappiness. I think this has a special significance during the pandemic when this idea of the sun rises and the sun sets and everything is futile. Everything feels so monotonous right now. Everything is really running in cycles in a more intense way than we're used to. And I think a lot of us are finding ourselves having a much harder time breaking out of patterns and behaviors. That stubbornness and resistance to growth and change can feel almost more comfortable sometimes than the scariness of change. So that's the idea I decided to work with this week.
Hey Sane, can I ask you an annoying favor? In my bedroom, there is a jean apron. I'm getting a headache from wearing my headphones, but I really want to listen to music. So I'm using these rubber carving blocks. They're a lot quicker to carve in than the linoleum that I usually work with, and with the time constraints of this challenge, they make a lot more sense.
A big challenge I had this week with this idea of creating false idols was that from an artistic sense, I think it's a really cool prompt being asked to create something that represents a false idol. But from a religious standpoint, from a Jewish religious standpoint, we're actively told not to make false idols. It took me a lot longer this week to come up with a game plan of what I was going to make.
So I made an altar cloth and lit candles on it. This idea of playing with cycles, words that moved in circles and stitching that moved in circles.
Hey all, here's a little blooper for you. So I just want to say that yes, indeed, I did set my bedroom on fire for this challenge. So seriously, y'all, fire safety is real. Don't try this at home.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing how everyone interprets this week's project. We were given more just thematic guidance to make something that represents false idolhood, but we were not told what we should be making. We were not told to make a mask or a shawl or a costume or anything specific. I can't wait to see what everyone else got up to.
And that's week 2. Get to voting. But first, let's see who our Challenge 1 winner is. Congrats! Now let's recap. I'll see you next week, and stay crafty.